Hi everyone. This is our video for the weekend of like March 15th, and I think I've decided that actually we will have a quiz on Tuesday, and I'll explain exactly what that's going to look like. Um, um, Great. So what I want to mention right before we begin our next Tashma is something that Emily said at the end of class, and I thought it was really beautiful. That Emily said that both Rava and Abaye have the same approach. They see someone who potentially could be considered a robber, could be considered someone who's doing something bad, and they're trying to figure out how actually they haven't done anything bad at all. They've done something that's actually completely allowed. Rava does it by saying, I have this principle called Yeush Shelo Midat. And that's going to tell us that even though it looks like the person may have done something bad because the person didn't declare something hefker, because they eventually will declare it hefker, that person, it's retroactive, and that person who uses that object before the hefker actually happens still is okay. And Abaye is saying, actually, I also agree that this person is okay, but not because I'm using Le'u Shalom Midat. I'm thinking about the person who lost that object itself and thinking that they are more in touch with the stuff that they lose than we think we are. And the moment that they understand that they've lost it, which doesn't happen so far away from the actual losing of the item itself, that they're going to actually say, oh my goodness, I my losing this object might put someone else in a bad situation, that they might be declared a robber. I don't want that, so I'm immediately going to declare this hefker. Specifically, why? Because my object doesn't have a siman, and there's really no way for me to get it back. So if I can't get it back, I want to make sure that anyone can take it, and they're not being considered a loser, which is a really interesting thing, because sometimes my mentality is, well, if I can't have it, no one can have it, right? And it's actually not at that at all. Well, if I can't have it, everyone should be able to have it, which is, I guess that's the Jewish way, which is really amazing, and certainly will push me to think harder about when things happen to me. I should often be thinking about what potential difficult moral conundrum might that put someone else in, and what can I do, what actions can I take to clear them of what might be a morally ambiguous situation, and make it very clear that they can do the right thing. So I love that, and thank you, Emily, for bringing that up. So we're now on to our seventh of 12 tashmas, and this is a really interesting one, because for the first time we're going to see a mishnah that's going to have part of it that seems to support Rava, part of it that seems to support Abaye. And what's going to need to happen is that the person who it does, the part of the Mishnah that it doesn't support, is going to have to come in and say, actually, that can support me. And the part of the Mishnah, and that's going to happen twice. So it's going to happen in two different, it's going to kind of flip flop in that way. And that's going to lead us to our next Tashma, because this isn't going to come up with a definitive answer, right? If one of them says, actually, that's an answer that's a case where I can't show you that my idea might work, then we're done, right? But we're not done, because we know we have more tashmas, right? So here we go. So here's the case. And the case is going to involve figs that have fallen onto the ground. And they're actually, the Gemara is going to go, the Mishnah itself is going to go through three cases. Case number one is the lowest here, case number two, case number three. And because I kind of list them like this, because there is a growing kind of idea of, well, maybe, while if I found just figs on the street, I would be like, oh yeah, I can totally keep that. But maybe if I found figs next to a fig tree that belongs to someone, it's on a fig farm, I'd be like, well, I don't know, maybe I can't. And if I find figs underneath the branches of a tree, that because it extends onto the kind of public place, but it's from a tree that belongs to all these other trees that are fenced in and really belongs to someone, I might be like, oh, I totally can't take that. And yet the Mishnah is very clear. Dried figs found on the way, number one. Dried figs even found next to a fig tree or a fig farm. Dried figs even found on the way, where the figs lean over into the street, where the figs are found under the tree. the one who takes it is not called a thief, meaning the person is not called a robber. Someone who takes it is allowed to take it and use it. That sounds a lot like Rava, because there's probably an owner of these figs, and does that person know that these things are gone? Maybe not. And if so, then we need to apply Yeush Shelo Midat. And then we have another case, which is now talking about olives or carobs. And I did an olive, even though I didn't do a carob, but please, because I don't really know what a carob looks like. But know this, that actually Papa Gelman once came in my office and said that he remembers on Tu B'Shvat that his school, Tarbut in Poland, would actually get carobs, and that was the one time of year, and he was so excited about it. So, all right. So, but I'm putting olives here. So here we have olives next to an olive tree, olives next to kind of an olive orchard. And look what the ruling is here. Olives or carobs found on the way, olives or carobs even found next to not a fig tree, next to an olive tree, or olives or carobs even found on the way where the olives lean over into the street, where the olives are found under the tree, you are not allowed to take it. So sorry, I made a little mistake there. Olives we're talking about here. So here we have a case of not allowed to take. So here we have, let's kind of get these both on the same page and look at this. So we have our figs are considered mutar. Now all of a sudden our olives are considered asur. And if we only had this side and not this side, well, if we only had this side, we'd be like, oh, mutar, that seems you're allowed to pick up that stuff and use it and take it, even when someone didn't declare something hefker. That sounds a lot like Rava. Oh, but look at this side where we've got the olives that are totally forbidden. And why is that? It's probably because the person didn't declare it hefker because they don't even know it's fallen from the tree. So that sounds a lot like Abaye. So basically that means now that if this idea is going to support Rava, that means that Abaye would need to show us why his view can also work here. And if this view seems to support Abaye, then Rava is going to need to show why this case could work for him as well. So here we go, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So first case is kind of an easier one because we've seen Abaye kind of go into a solution mode many times already in this sugya, and he's going to do the same thing here. And here are our words here that's used in the Gemara. Bishlema Reisha Abaye. According to Abaye, the beginning of the Mishnah, which talks about this stuff being mutar, being allowed, is bishlema, is acceptable to Abaye, and it's not going to be a kasha, lo kasha. Bishlema Reisha Abaye, lo kasha. The beginning, the first part of the Mishnah, according to Abaye, is not a kasha. It's acceptable. So what are the two reasons offered to support Abaye? You probably know some of these reasons already, because we've seen a bunch already. So the first is that it's chashivi, that these figs cost a lot of money. So someone is going to be constantly aware of those figs, and it's going to kind of like take a lot of a lot of care of them. He's going to be walking out to check out the figs. Are they ripe yet? Are they not ripe? And when they're around the ripening season, he's going to do that even more often. Like he's always kind of going out to those. So Abai is saying, since he's always checking up, he's going to know when those figs fall off the tree, and he's going to say, "Up, those are hefker." And also Te'ena Nami. Also, Nami is also Te'ena also Meida Yidi'ah Dinatra. We know that they fall off the tree. The Te'enas are not something necessarily that stay on trees for a long time. That actually one of the characteristics of a te'ena is it falls to the ground at a certain point. And because of this, because someone knows that they actually fall to the ground, that someone from the beginning is going to say, "Oh, that's just the way of the world of fig trees, that they're going to at some point fall to the ground, and I could potentially put someone in a weird situation." So really from the ikara, from the beginning, I'm going to declare that hefker. So two reasons, which kind of we've seen both of those kind of reasons before, and specifically having to do with. So we can say at this point, you know what? Actually, Abaye's done a good job, kind of showing, well, maybe Rava's correct when we see a mutar, but I can show you two reasons why actually the te'ena, the person declared hefker long before the finder even found it. Okay, but now we're on to the the second part of the Mishnah that talks about something being forbidden, because that seems to be a problem for Rava, because Rava seems to say if we use Yehush lo midat, then anytime something's forbidden, I've got a real problem here, because Yehush lo midat is a principle that allows me to be able to use something, and when I can't use it, and if it has to do with hefker, that he hasn't declared hefker, I shouldn't care about that because he's going to declare hefker later on. So Rava has to come up with a reason of something about these olives that is going to allow him to come out okay, right? And look what he's going to do. So first of all, the Gemara says Ella, which means now let's look at so we just looked at the Abaye. Abaye just gave a good support for why he might be correct. But the Seifa of the Mishnah, which declares something's forbidden, that to Rava, Ella Seifa, L'Rava, is kasha, is kasha, is a difficulty. Rava has a difficulty, is going to have a difficulty about the Seifa because that katane, it's written in the end of our Mishnah, zaitim, olives, and carobs are forbidden for someone to be able to take, and if you take them, you're considered a robber. So what can Rava do? Any ideas? Okay, so let's see what Rava does. Well, luckily, Rava has Rabbi Abahu to help him out. I'm Rabbi Abahu, and I can help. I happen to know that there are many kinds of olive trees and many kinds of olives, and each distinct olive tree belongs to the distinct kind of olive. Oh, so what is Rabbi Abahu saying? He's saying if you knew about olives, you would know actually that when you look at an olive, it's not the exact same thing as any. There are many different kinds of olives, and if I look at that olive really carefully, I'll know exactly the tree that it came from. So what is actually Rabbi Abahu saying about the olive? He's saying that this means that these olives are not asur because no one has done Yeush or hasn't done Yeush or has done Yeush or hasn't done Yeush. They're asur for a completely different reason. They are asur because, did you get it? Because they have a siman. And when Rav and Abaye are even talking, they're never even talking about a case of an object with a siman. They both agree that if an object has a siman, no one is ever even doing Yeush because people think they can find it and they can think that they can prove that it's theirs. There would never even be a case of having to use the principle of Yeush Shalom Midat if something has a siman. Rava believes that. Abaye believes that. And here we have shown with the help of Rabbi Abahu, who must be an olive expert, that actually an olive, something about an olive's appearance proves what tree it came from and who it belongs to. And that proof is a siman, is some kind of sign that's going to allow someone to say, I'm not going to declare hefker. I can find that object. I can prove that it is mine because it has it's next to my tree and it has that kind of same kind of thing as my as same it's of the variety that my tree is. So listen to what. So now it seems like Rava has actually has gotten out of this, right? It seemed like maybe this Asur might actually dig a hole or push Rava up against the wall, but Rava has actually successfully kind of survived this potential attack. But look at this. Here comes the Abaye side and says, Rava, I have a problem with your explanation. Why is that? He says, because the Abaye side says, but wait a second, Rava, if that idea about the olive having a siman of some sort is proves that olive should never be there should never even be a case of Yeush at all because someone can come back. Shouldn't figs be subject to the same idea? Don't figs have something about them that show what tree it came from? Shouldn't, if there's a fig expert, shouldn't have, aren't there many varieties of figs? So shouldn't this be the exact same case that here, if these have the figs have a siman as well, and they should be a sore also? Like, if your opinion applies for olives, why is an olive so different than a fig? So what is Rava's reply going to be? What is Rava's reply going to be? Well, Rava's going to say, I would agree with you theoretically. If a fig showed a certain siman, of course it would be a sore. But I happen to know something about figs, that figs, when they fall to the ground, they nim eset. Nim eset, yeah, nimasli kfar means like I'm sick of this, or in modern Hebrew. So nim eset means something like it becomes sickening in a way. It like degenerates in some way. It becomes dirty or unedible in some way. And maybe we could even say that actually if it even had a siman, and maybe it did, maybe it didn't, it loses its siman in the act of falling to the ground. And and Abaye did say before, actually, or right, that we know that actually figs are prone to fall on the ground. So now we're saying, so Rava has actually saved himself. He said actually there is a difference between the te'ena and the zayit and the olive. The difference is when a te'ena falls to the ground, there is no siman, or the siman kind of degenerates very quickly. So I can't say that's asur. I say it's actually mutar, and that allows us to end the sugya saying, well, Rava actually has survived that kind of that attack by Abaye at the end, and we move on to our next tashma. So, well, here's what your quiz is going to be. Your quiz is going to be basically, I'm going to give you this in kind of um, very minimal amounts of English, trying to be almost word for word of the Hebrew. There's even less Hebrew in the Gemara. The Gemara part is, I took this from Sefaria, and everything that's bolded is the Gemara, and everything that's not bolded are words they add to help us make sense. So we kept some of those words, but most of it I didn't. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and I really like you to try to do it without notes. So this is a request. So even though you're studying the video, what I'd like you to do is to fill in this ping and pong without any notes. And so let's go through it one time here again. So we've got our Tashma. We've got the entire Mishnah right here. Here's the first part of that Mishnah, talking about something that's permitted. That's going to be something that supports Rava. And then we have something that's prohibited, Asur, that's going to support Abaye. Then then the Gemara is going to start in saying, Bishlema Resha, the Resha is, the beginning of the Mishnah is okay, according to Abaye, who has no kasha, no problem with it. And why is that? And he gives two reasons. Figs are chashive, figs are important, and you're going to be kind of feeling for them or looking for them at all times. And in the case of a fig tree, one knows that these fruits fall to the ground. And so, kind of from the very get go, you're going to say, you know what, these figs fall to the ground. If I happen not to be there at the right time and can pluck them before they fall, I'm going to declare that from the get go, hefker, right? But, and now we go to the Seifa, the second part of the Mishnah, seems to be problematic for Rava, because it says that those are, you're prohibited to take that fruit. Rava Ba'u comes in and says, an olive tree is sh'ani. An olive is different than other fruits, since its appearance proves. The appearance of that olive tree proves who that olive belongs to. And even though the olive falls, he knows that an olive tree that is located in a place that is owned by a specific person belongs to that person. That basically the olive, this is kind of a long way of saying the olive basically has a siman, and because of that, we don't even the owner doesn't even think of declaring that hefker, and that is why, according to Rava, to Rava, it is it is asur. Whereas Abaye would say, no, 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 it is asur not because it has a siman, it's a asur because it's proving my principle that you cannot that since the owner hasn't mia'eshed, hasn't basically declared it hefker, no one can take it. But Rav is saying, no, 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 no. This is about something else entirely. The reason the owner hasn't declared it hefker is because the owner believes, because it has a siman and can come back for it. And then Abaye's side says, if so, Rava, if you can declare that an olive is different, what about the ratio? You should also say that dried figs are also have a siman in some way and also are asur, because they have the same quality of of the type of fig tells what tree it comes from. And Rav Papa says, no, actually, a fig becomes disgusting with its fall. So probably right from the get-go, someone is going to a fig comes so when it's a fig becomes so when someone notices that that fig fells, they're going to declare it hefker. And secondly, that even if it had a siman, maybe that when it falls to the ground, it in some way kind of loses that siman, and so you can't use that same reasoning there. A fig is different than an olive. The olive, the reason why you can't, that's a sore, is because that is something that really does have still a siman that proves who owns that olive, and the owner is not going to declare that ever hefker. They're going to always never lose hope that they can find it. But the case of the fig, that is a case of the reason that the owner, according to Rava, can use it is because it's a case of proving Yeush Shelo Midat, because the finder can use it, because eventually that owner will call that hefker, because they're like, oh, it fell and there's no way I'm going to find it. There's no way I'm going to be able to come back for it. So that is kind of your piece. And again, so I'm going to give you this right here. I'm going to ask you to kind of place it. And I think the way I would kind of the way I might put this together is by doing the following, by saying that here is my Mishnah here. And I might want to start by saying something like this, like this Mishnah seems to, like, I might want to say this is the Rava side and this is the Abaye side, and that's what we've been doing. Rava side and this is the Abaye side. And I might like to kind of say that even before, like the Bishlema, I might actually put on this side right here. So I might start with this kind of sense of, doesn't the beginning of the Mishnah seem to say that Rava is correct and Abaye is not correct, because a user is allowed to use that stuff, that stuff, even if the finder hasn't yet noticed that it's gone. And then maybe I'd say Abaye. No, Abaye basically is saying actually the ratio is just fine according to me. But then I guess what I would do is I would have basically an Abaye side part two, because Abaye doesn't just prove that he can be right. Abaye then the Abaye side then goes to attack the Rava side. So I would almost have a one thing here, then I would have one thing here proving the ping side wrong, and then attacking the pong side attacks the ping side. So I'd have kind of a green and then almost another green right here, green number two. And then my ping side is, if that's my Rava side, Rava would have to come back and say, no, no, no. Actually, olives are different. Olives are sha'ani, because they actually have a siman on them, and that's why that it's forbidden. And then the Pong side is going to come back and say, actually, Rava, you're wrong, because if that's the case, you should declare all items. If the siman stuff is so important, you should declare olives and figs asur, forbidden, because they both have simans. And Rava is going to come back, and I don't have it here, but Rava is going to come back and say, no, sorry, actually, a fig is different than an olive. An olive does have a siman, but a fig loses that siman, or a fig is in some way disgusting enough that no owner, when they figure out that it's gone, even if it at one point had a siman, the disgustingness and the degeneration of that item is going to make that person declare it hefker. All right, that's it. Good luck, everyone.